Hello, welcome to the theCUBE pod. I'm John Furrier with Dave Vellante. This is February 6th. This is episode 122. We're getting into the hundreds, 120 somethings, podcast, beta going on. We're going to get the format updated, more and more guests maybe potentially coming in per request. Dave, salute
What do
to
you say,
you.
John? Missed
Patriots in the Super Bowl. We've got to get that right out of the gate.
Let me put my Pats hat on. Hold on.
I'm in New York, so I'm like walking to the elevator.
Hang on.
And
Let me get it. Let me get it. All right, here we go.
I'm in New York, so I'm walking to the elevator. Hey, go Patriots! And then you're a Patriots fan of New York. They love to talk shit. It's really fun to see the Pats in there again. So, man, what a week! The market was down. It's up 1,000 points today. It's a roller coaster
today.
I mean, Wall Street woke up and decided that AI is either going to kill software or bankrupt itself trying. Stocks are down, but those things seem to be priced in. On one hand, investors are acting like software is the Titanic. Ooh, the bell, the market's closing up 1,000 points.
Wow. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, there we go.
You can't even hear it. I can't hear it. It's good. You got good mic.
Got the microphone. It's loud as heck. But Dave, I mean, on one hand, investors are acting like software is the Titanic and AI is the iceberg. SaaS stocks get crushed, $1 trillion in market cap evaporates, and suddenly everyone's talking about the death of software. On the other hand, the same investors are panicking because the AI leaders are spending way too much on infrastructure. Alphabet beat earnings, Amazon beat earnings, Microsoft beats earnings, and the stocks go down because why? They're investing in the future. So which is it? An AI extinction event or an unprofitable science project? Because where I'm sitting, there's no insight. It's only whiplash. But here's the thing. The operators don't seem to be confused as the markets. The builders are shipping. Entrepreneurs are starting companies. Enterprises are deploying. Agents are creeping into the workflow. We saw Claudebot, Multbook. And people are actually using this stuff and aren't talking about the end of software. They're talking about what's changing, the innovation, who's winning, and who's getting disintermediated. Dave, are the investors finally waking up to a real platform shift? Are they confused? Are we watching another classic case of the market wildly mispricing the future in real time?
So John, the title of my breaking analysis this week, number 306, is Cloud Earnings Bring Clarity, Concern, and Confusion. So the clarity is, like you said, the operators, they're clear. They're going to spend $615 billion next year, the big four, Meta, Alphabet, Amazon, and Microsoft, $615 billion in 2026 on Capex, up 70% from last year. So they are clear. But of course, that brings a lot of concern and consternation. We saw it start really with Microsoft, where Capex growth diverged from Azure growth, and that freaked everybody out. And then, to me, the confusion is amazing. You're seeing it today. The market's up like through the roof after getting routed earlier. But here's the thing, John, $615 billion next year on Capex. Okay, how much of that is going to AI? A lot. Let's call it 60, 65%. How much of that is going to NVIDIA? Probably about 2/3 of it. So why, when the market gets routed, does the market also take NVIDIA down when they're going to be getting all the benefit from this? The other thing I'll say is, of course, the SaaS attack continued. Why? Because everybody thinks AI is going to take over software and SaaS. Why'd they think that? Well, Anthropic came out with a new feature, a new version that had not just coding expertise, but there was legal, and so it's translating into other areas. So, SaaS must be dead. Meanwhile, Palantir has a rule of 127. They're kicking ass, and that stock goes down with everything else. And here's the deal. I think some SaaS companies are going to do really well, those guys that go AI native. Others probably aren't going to make it. Just like when we went from on-prem to cloud, you saw consolidation, Manugistics, and throwing names out there that people don't remember, Siebel. There'll be consolidation for the customers, and those that are AI native are going to continue to thrive. And I would say the Palantirs, the ServiceNows, Salesforce, Oracle, SAP, my opinion, they'll make it through the knothole. Workday, I give them the nod as well.
It's that scene in Moneyball, the movie with Brad Pitt, how he takes over the Oakland A's, uses statistics to get a competitors go to the World Series, almost win. You know, he had a famous line in there when he was like first starting, when he had all the static and people were against him. He said this line, adapt or die. And that is really, I think, what you were saying, and I resonated with, because we are literally in a shift of the platform. It's very clear, and it is an adapt or die. We had Jack Hittery on, who's got this moonshot project that was spun out of Google. He raised $2 billion, didn't even raise any venture capital. They're doing AI with outside language models, chemistry, physical AI. It's a killer story. It's a great story. He gets it. He said that same thing on theCUBE here at the NYSE Wired and program we had, our new brand. But here's my take. Markets are reacting emotionally, clearly. Operators, entrepreneurs are adapting pragmatically. I mean, there's a lot of buzz on Claudebot, Multbook, all those things, but this is a sign of the times. We heard Jensen Huang say the same thing this week in San Francisco, but there's a disconnect, huge disconnect between the capital markets and the technology reality. And it has never been a wider gap. And I tell you, this is why the Wired program we're doing with the CUBE original, which started with NYSE and us, is so important, because technology is the market. Okay, the capital markets and the technology markets are coming together. At the same time, the mindset and the disconnect has never been wider, in my opinion. So I see it every day here. You know, we speak Silicon Valley and tech, which is, you know, roadmaps, architecture, and velocity. Here in Wall Street, they talk, you know, risk, durability, and returns. And there is a huge disconnect between the two. And that's why the top story I wanted to get with you on is this issue that was clear this week, and all the talking heads and the hot takes really just didn't even scratch the surface. But the question is AI killing software or just repricing it? This is huge. This is a huge topic. And Rob Hope just wrote a post on SiliconANGLE calling it the Titanic theory versus software reality. So comparing the software as icebergs and AI as the Titanic, meaning it's going to hit the iceberg and crash. I'm not sure I believe in it. I think it's going to be more software than ever. What's your take? Is AI killing software, or is it just repricing it and redistributing the wealth and the value?
So both things could be true. AI is not killing all software, but it will hurt parts of software. So first of all, I would say, if you're reliant on the seat-based pricing model and you've been squeezing that lemon, that's going to change. To your point, adapt or die. So seat-based pricing is going to move to outcome-based pricing. Outcomes are going to be, you know, a function of, you know, generating tokens and cost per tokens. So you've got to be AI native. You've got to be super efficient there, number one. Number two, I think those companies, those SaaS companies that infuse AI into their software are going to make it really easy for all those enterprises that aren't JP Morgan Chase to adopt AI, you know, quite simply. And so I think for a long period of time, those guys are going to be okay. Having said that, have you seen the Anthropic and OpenAI ads, the Anthropic attack ad, the Super Bowl ad? I do think that these LLM vendors, to get a viable business model, I think Anthropic is in the right trajectory in the enterprise, are going to build the next great software platform to make it much simpler to adopt AI, to cleanse your data, to shape your data, and to reformat, rethink your processes. That's going to happen in a whole new layer that's emerging, and it's going to be hidden and abstracted, and you're going to tap through APIs, you're going to get to tokens, and you're going to get to functionality. Have you seen that ad, John?
Yeah, I mean, all the ads, and OpenAI's got the ad like, with us, you can invent yourself and be productive.
But the one with Sam Altman doing push-ups, he's not Sam Altman, but it's the geek doing pull-ups.
It's like the Microsoft Apple ad back in the day. Remember, the Apple guy was cool and the PC guy was a nerd.
Exactly. So an advertisement doesn't.
OpenAI just announced, by the way, the Codex and then the Frontier platform for agents. Again, to your point, you know, there is going to be a new software paradigm, and there'll be more software than ever. Steve Sinofsky said that. We quoted that on SiliconANGLE. And of course, the iceberg quote is more of the Wall Street. But Jensen Huang had a quote at the Cisco AI event. He said, ROI can't be spreadsheeted yet, meaning you can't operationalize what's coming because the discontinuity. Rafael de Ornano was here yesterday. She's chronicalizing this agent wave, and he's right, because the agents are a tell sign. This Claudebot, Multbot was critical. And I said on theCUBE interview here last week, and I'll say it again here. The Claude bot multibook where the agents were running around freelancing and doing all this cool stuff and some crazy stuff. That was a moment. That was a moment of consequence in the industry. And I compare it to the DeepSeek moment. DeepSeek was a moment 2 years ago. It said, oh my God, I don't need all these GPUs. I can configure resources differently for the workload. Everyone went crazy. What does it mean, DeepSeek? That changed the game. That changed the narrative. That changed how people built systems. The Claude bot has a similar moment of consequence because it shows what agents are going to be doing. And Jensen highlighted that as well. So I think we're going to look back at that past 2 weeks and say the Claude bot and the Multbook is a DeepSeek moment because it's going to change everything. Not so much that it did crazy stuff and created social networks and, wanted to sell their humans. It showed that agents could do work. And this is why it's important for people to listen to this and understand that the gap between Wall Street and tech is so real. They don't know how to reframe it. There's fear. This is evolution, not fear. Software isn't dying. Its margins and control points are being renegotiated. OpenAI could be the new platform, to your point. This is what's happening, and people don't get it. They don't understand. They go right to the fear. It's an evolution, and the margins and the control points, the data, the architecture, the systems are all being renegotiated. NVIDIA's at the center of it. The agents are driving it. This is huge. This is a big point.
I've said this many times, and I've seen every wave in the tech industry, and every time you get this situation where the new stuff is growing fast, but it's not big enough to offset the decline in the old stuff, and you hit that point, that inflection point where everybody's confused, and I feel like now we're there. And in terms of ROI, first of all, Jensen's absolutely right. He's like, stop trying to find ROI in a spreadsheet. Pick things that are going to really drive your company value. And let 1,000 flowers bloom. He basically was saying, he didn't say this, he basically used your line, which is a homage to Andy Grove, let chaos reign and then reign in the chaos. He's saying, we're letting 1,000 flowers bloom. We haven't, he goes, let the 1,000 flowers bloom and then pare back the garden, prune the garden. He goes, we haven't pruned the garden yet. We're letting it bloom. But I would say this on ROI. What is ROI? ROI is benefit over cost. It's a very simple calculation. And I would project that benefit is going to keep going up. And what's cost? Cost is going to be cost per token, essentially. And so your benefit is going to go up in terms of productivity. Your cost per token is going to keep coming down and down and down. And that's what NVIDIA is driving. And the whole industry is going to try to keep up with those guys. I think they're going to have trouble. And so what happens when the denominator goes down, you math whizzes, the value goes up, the result goes up. So that's what's happening. Benefit over cost, lower cost, higher benefit, bigger ROI.
Yeah, and I would say the token value is also related to where the value is created on the software side. So going back to Jensen, I think what he was saying on the spreadsheet was spreadsheeted, which means modeled. And I think companies are trying to model too early and not get success to build the model. So he's kind of saying, let it rain and then we'll rein it in, then model it. Don't try to go right to the end game when it's not developed yet. But to the point about the tokens, this is why the Capex, we'll have a whole section on Capex, but I will just say that the Amazon and Google that are spending and NVIDIA supplying the systems produces tokens cheaper and faster at more volume. And agents eat tokens. The more they eat, the smarter they become. Physical AI, self-driving cars, all the physical AI that's developing in with robotics, they're going to live on tokens. So tokens is the nutrients, it's the food. The more they can eat, the more intelligent they are. So the game is about tokens. The game is about context windows. The game is about software. So I just find it really odd, Dave, that people like saying the death of software, when in reality, like you were saying, with tokens and productivity, that's software. And so the productivity shock has not yet hit the market, because why AI is expanding margins, and it's not killing software. It's expanding margins and not killing the software. It is the software. So this is why I think is a huge point, because now if you add productivity into the mix, you'll look at it. Okay. This AI panic is completely not relevant. I mean, it's going to kill some software and some use cases for sure, but it's going to usher in a ton of value. And large company employees are going to get 3 times more productive. That came out from the Wealth Consulting Group. But again, the productivity piece added on to the fact that it's AI and software, by the way, it's just a new software paradigm.
Well, when we went from on-prem to SaaS, we saw, think about what Anil Bhusri did, Frank Slootman. I mean, they just pounded, ServiceNow, Fred Luddy. They just pounded the SaaS model, and they took off. Workday and Salesforce. I mean, amazing, right? And so if you were riding that wave, you were going to do very well. And of course, the narrative at the time, you heard it out in the valley. Oh, no startup uses Oracle. Well, Oracle seems to be doing pretty well, despite all their Capex ambitions. But so Oracle made it through that. SAP made it through that. So, but some didn't. Like I mentioned, there was Manugistics, JD Edwards, Siebel. I mean, the list goes on. And so, and they got acquired. And that's what's going to happen here. And so I do expect there's going to be the new great software players emerge. And the thing is, John, it used to be software economics marginal economics were so good, 95% gross margin. And then cloud COGS came into the equation. You had to pay the cloud supplier, so you had to pay AWS. So now gross margins are in the mid 70s. Well, now it's token costs, and you got to pay the AI piper. And so that's a whole different ball game. So the existing SaaS companies, they have to adjust to that. Guys like Anthropic and OpenAI, they're swimming in cash the way Bezos was when he started Amazon. And so, by the way, Amazon trading at like 20 times earnings. Walmart's 40 times earnings. Boy, I like Amazon here. But at any rate, that's beside the point. We're not giving investment advice, just our opinion.
Yeah, and Bitcoin too. Let's jump on that bit. This SaaS conversation is great because you talk about the SaaS company, but talk about the customers of the SaaS. I think this is where you were getting at earlier. And I was trying to connect with that point, which is, okay, yeah, SaaS is changing to AI, still software. It's just a software paradigm shift. But the users and the people who pay for software are the ones that are getting the benefits. This is the productivity shock. So the Wealth Group I was mentioning, I just read this study from the Wealth Group. They put out an analysis this week that was showing that that S&P 500 employees, basically corporate America, are more than 3 times as productive as the average U.S. worker. Not 3% more productive, 3 times faster growth. That means the big companies aren't shrinking because demand is falling. They're producing more with fewer people. And that's changing the entire AI conversation. Because here's the punchline. The sales per employee of these companies was growing at 5.7% year over year, compared with 1.9% for the broader economy. That's not some academic stat, Dave. That's margin expansion in real time.
Well, that's
labor is the biggest cost.
That's 2 things. That's AI ROI, and that's, oh boy, if I can do that with a new type of software platform, the balance of the software industry, you can see why. I mean, I get it. The market doesn't understand. They can't pick Palantir versus, ServiceNow. They don't know. It's all SaaS. And so, it's going to be interesting to see who gets through. Again, I have opinions on this. I think Palantir, I think Salesforce. I'm actually, a lot more sanguine on Salesforce than the market is. I think Workday, and I think ServiceNow, and I think SAP as well.
But those companies, you talked earlier about the pricing per seat, which is the pricing strategy, the old strategy.
Right.
Okay, think about what the customers are doing. If labor is the biggest cost of any enterprise, and when the output rises faster than headcounts, profit follows. Dave, this part
operating
is missing. Productivity isn't slowing, it's accelerating.
Somebody was saying today, I think it was Rick
if you don't
Sherman.
price it right, that's just the whole point. Their pricing strategy is based on a completely different productivity gain. So it's accelerating to be more productive. So that's growth. So the buyer is going to easily go right to who's got the better software model from a pricing and value standpoint. So this is what's supposed to happen in these shifts.
Well, and
slower hiring doesn't mean weaker companies, right?
No, I agree. It means that you're getting operating leverage. I think somebody said today, I think it might have been Rick Sherlin saying that, look, the code, okay, great. The code is important, but writing the code, yes, that's a cost of doing that. But it was really, once you get the product market fit, because you figured out the workflow that you want to automate, it was all SaaS, and it's true. It was all about, once you get the product market fit, scale go-to-market. And what happened with a lot of software companies failed, and startups failed, is because they try to scale go-to-market before they have product market fit. But those guys like Workday, like Salesforce, like ServiceNow, they got product market fit, Snowflake, Databricks, and then they brought in operators who knew how to scale go-to-market.
Yeah,
they
but my
win.
my thesis, Dave, is that the companies you're talking about, who serve the people who actually buy the software, are
Right,
mismatched, and I think the product market fit is declining. Actually,
right.
and
But
to your point about OpenAI becoming a next software company, they're actually moving to where the market fit is, because having higher productivity and not hiring, doing more with less, that's what softwares
so,
and AI are supposed to do. That's the
so,
purpose of the software.
so I
It's
think
not,
what's
so
going to
it's actually,
happen,
it's actually getting better.
I do think what's going to happen is that the leading SaaS companies will team up with the frontier model vendors. And what's going to be interesting to see is, will those partnerships allow the SaaS companies to kind of make it through, or will the foundation models just get smarter and smarter and smarter and suck up all their, kind of intelligence and become that next, layer? That's what's going to be interesting to watch. And I honestly think the answer is going to be some will make it and some won't. But there's no question in my mind, to your point, that some of these startups and these frontier model vendors are going to escalate and become the next great software companies. No question in my mind.
Well,
I mean,
I got
we're
a call
seeing it.
into
It's
I got
obvious.
a call I got a call into the Wealth Capital Group that did the survey, because he explains that S&P 500s are at an all 15-year high, and if the S&P 500 net margins at 13%, led by tech, real estate, and financials, the three top verticals, its operating leverage is a huge point. You talk about this all the time, and this is actually happening. So I find it very ironic that in this market, with a shift, was like sell off this week, and then 1,000 rebound points today, you saw it pick
Amazing.
back up
It's awesome.
over. And so, for a decade, this is the shift. I mean, the business metrics are different. For decades, growth meant hiring. Look at us, we hired more people, close a round of funding. Growth means amplifying everyone's benefit with productivity with software and agents. That is what Jensen was saying. That's what everyone that I've talked to this week and this month is saying. With the agentic system, the investments will keep rising. Headcounts are going to stay flat. It's not about replacing people, it's about unlocking scale without friction. This is why the Capex stuff is going on at the same time as the software stocks are plummeting. This is the whole panic that's happening. Productivity is exploding, margins are expanding. Then why, Dave, are investors panicking about this AI Capex? Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet had massive quarters. Suddenly it's not good enough.
Well,
What are they missing? What is
well,
besides the gap
so
between the capital markets?
I'll give you some data on this. If you take AWS, Azure, GCP, throw in Alibaba and Oracle, and add up their 2025 revenue in cloud, it's like 275 billion. They spent 350 billion last year on CapEx. That number is probably going to grow. It's going to grow, I don't know, 30%. So it'll be in the mid threes next year. They're going to spend double that on CapEx. So I understand why the market's freaking out. But I would say this: what are you going to do with your cash? If you're not investing your cash in the future in R&D, then you should just do buybacks. They're already doing buybacks. Do M&A. They're betting on the future, and these are smart people. Satya, Sundar, Jassy, Garmin, Zuck. These guys are going for
Yeah,
it. As is Altman.
it's an
And
arms race. It's a
Anthropic.
war. It's a war for the
And
future.
so, and let me get to the why they're spending so much on CapEx, because they need NVIDIA. If you don't have Vera Rubin, you are screwed, in my opinion. And so they're lining up, they're writing checks, because they know that that is going to be the low-cost path. And TPUs aren't going to be able to get you there. Trainium's not going to be able to get you there. Maya isn't going to be able to get you there. AMD and Intel aren't going to be able to get you there. They need NVIDIA. And that's why they're spending so much money on CapEx. Without NVIDIA, you lose. That's a fact.
NVIDIA figured this out many years ago. The timing, the product cycles, infrastructure cycles. And I'll just say this: my key takeaway on this whole week and the past infrastructure conversations is, like anything that I've learned in my life in tech and innovation, everything looks ugly before it looks inevitable. So AI
Yeah.
infrastructure looks ugly right now because chaos, fear, before it looks inevitable. But if you look at the numbers, you just laid it out. They're all jamming on the Capex investment because they know the demand is there. This is not a demand problem. It's a timing and accounting problem. NVIDIA is the bank. They're the investor. They're the supplier. They have the supply chain and they have the ecosystem and they got the product. So this brings up something that we kind of talk about on the CUBE pod and in many of our interviews, infrastructure, product market fit, but there's a difference. And I think what Jensen figured out and NVIDIA early on with the software, hardware, and then obviously the growth of AI is that there's a difference between infrastructure cycles and product cycles. So we just talked about productivity and how software's transitioning. The product cycles are highly accelerated, very fast. The infrastructure cycles that enable that are slower, but have to be scalable. So I think the infrastructure investments all point to the fact that their bet is, I gotta have the infrastructure. I gotta either have spending for NVIDIA, buy from the king of the industry, or have a hedge. So if Amazon, Google, Azure, Oracle don't have a hedge for NVIDIA, let's just say NVIDIA hypothetically said, we're going to box out AWS because they make their own silicon. Hypothetical.
They could.
Amazon needs to have an answer for that. So what do? You buy up all the neo clouds. So there's going to be an arms race, more chaos, I think, is going to happen on the infrastructure. And again, we're in an infrastructure cycle, not a product cycle.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a really interesting call you're making there. And so I think there's no doubt in my mind that not every neo cloud is going to make it. You know, one or two will, but so there could be some M&A there. I'll share some data with you. I published this.
I think CoreWeave, Lambda, definitely winners. Nebius, they've got great tech chops. And I think you'll see specialty players that will partner with the neo clouds and partner with the hyperscalers. I think there'll be a Keiretsu. I think there'll be a kind of an OCP-like vibe. There'll be like an open cloud compute kind of scenario that would kind of be an alternative to NVIDIA. But like you said, if they control the supply, you know, if you look at the allocation, I did some math on this, Dave. I would tell you on some research on this. I did some math on this. Let me pull up the stats. Okay, on the
well, while you're doing that, let me share some data on AI Factory, because this is really relevant to the whole ROI conversation and the investment and the CapEx. You go back to 2024, we're talking about a couple of $100 billion market. Okay, we're going to be spending the AI Factory spend by 2031 is going to be $5 trillion. Okay. And so I showed you like 275 billion for the top four or five hyperscalers. What do you think that's going to look like in the 2030s? Well, the AI Factory revenue doesn't cross over probably until early 2030s, maybe 2032, 2033, but then it explodes. You're talking about a $20 trillion market by mid 2030s. It's like sports salaries, professional sports salaries. People, they can't keep going up. That $275 billion market is going to be much, much larger, probably 10x larger. So the dollar of CapEx that they spend today is going to return, 10x or more, over the next 10 years. And that's the bet that these guys are making.
Yeah. And the infrastructure cycle on those bets, you can't get B200s right now. If you want B200s, man, you're going to have to wait in line. There's huge allocation. H200s, you can get those H100s. They're like everywhere. But I think this, to your point, Amazon
August.
Pointed out.
Maybe get them in August.
Well, someone's getting them in August, but what's the line look like? Allocation. Who gets it? NVIDIA's got huge leverage.
CoreWeave's going to get it. Okay, let's talk about that. CoreWeave's going to get it. OpenAI is going to get it. Right now, the hyperscalers.
Is Amazon going to get it?
Amazon,
based upon Jassie's transcript yesterday,
they got to write a big check. Yes, and Google has to write a big check. And so here's my point: is if you're out, trash talking NVIDIA or competing with them, you have to be really careful because they're going to get dialed down a little bit. NVIDIA is going to control that chessboard. But we know they're going to pump CoreWeave. We know OpenAI, right? Anthropic, maybe not as much of a priority as OpenAI, but NVIDIA, look at Intel, you know this better than I do. Intel played it beautifully back in the day when it was the monopoly. It wanted everybody to win, right? It didn't want a single PC supply. It didn't want Compaq to win out over Dell, over Acer. It wanted all of them to do pretty well. HP, Lenovo, et cetera. Same with NVIDIA. A little bit of NeoCloud, a little bit
I
of
think that's very
hyperscale.
true. That's
Balance
very
that
true.
out.
I think they're 100% accurate. And by the way, I would agree, not only did Intel do that, but NVIDIA is absolutely adamant that they have the same philosophy. People that I talk to, Jensen and everyone else, we're accelerating, not disrupting, because disrupting implies a loser. They view the world as everyone should dip their beak in and taste and have the value. Now, the question comes down to, relevance. If someone's got tier one customers like AWS, Google, Azure, they're going to want an XAI's got a big customer base going on there. So, NVIDIA's got to spread the love.
They're getting allocation. Remember, Elon was going to build a data center GPU. I think he's smarter than all these guys. He said, they're all smart. He's like super smart. He said, I never am going to be able to compete with NVIDIA for training and data center. He was going to build his own because he believes in vertical integration. But I do believe you're going to see him emerge at the edge with Grok and what he's done at Tesla. Who knows, maybe he'll even merge Tesla into his new company. So
I think, and NVIDIA, your point is so relevant. They're a market maker. They're an investor. They're a financer. They're a partner. They're doing it all. And I got to give a prop out to NVIDIA because they're just doing everything right in an expansion market where there's huge demand. And they're very transparent about the roadmap, their ecosystem play. They do a lot of what Microsoft used to do back when they had a monopoly where they would pre-release vaporware. We used to say, oh, vaporware from Microsoft. Jensen does it, I won't say vapor, but they actually do the work to saying, this is what we see the future and do a demo. And at GTC next month, I expect a lot more of that too. More roadmap information, a lot more ecosystem success, but we'll see physical AI on stage. We'll see robotics. We'll see agents, okay, and how agents are scaling. And with tokens, we'll be talking tokens. Agents eat tokens. Here's our token speed, cost. Here's the context windows from applications. So NVIDIA is doing all the right things, and I can't believe the stock got hammered.
Well, it went up today. But to your point about, is Amazon going to get allocation? They have to be careful. All these guys have to be careful. I'll tell you a quote from Jassy last night in the earnings call. Another challenge is cost. I've said this many times, but if we want AI to be used as expansively as companies want, we have to make the cost of inference lower. Yes, true. A significant impediment today is the cost of AI chips. Customers are starving for better price performance, and typically and understandably, the dominant early leaders aren't in a hurry to make that happen. They have other priorities. Well, there's only one dominant early leader. It's NVIDIA. And I would call BS on that, because NVIDIA, what they announced at CES was 1/10 the cost. So that is BS that I'm calling on Jassy. And I would say, karma's a bitch. I mean, look, S3 prices, people complain about that. EC2 prices. Yes, Graviton lowers the price, but NVIDIA's in control right now. So they've got to be careful to make sure that they stay in good graces with NVIDIA. I'm sure it's fine. They're tweaking them a little bit, but with we heard Garmin at the Cisco Summit, 18 to 24 months life cycles. NVIDIA's on a 12-month life cycle. The gap is going to widen, and you are going to have to get allocation from NVIDIA, or you're going to be in trouble.
It's a war. It's a race. It's an arms race. NVIDIA's got it. Everyone's investing. A lot of bets being made. Again, infrastructure, AI infrastructure looks ugly before it looks inevitable, and it's inevitable.
And
but let's transition to the next section of the pod, because this really was a good segue.
One more thing. So I won't say publicly who it is, but I'll tell you offline. I get some interesting back channels on our NVIDIA take, because I'm high on NVIDIA. I got a super smart guy that interesting fellow, gave me a long case for bear case, not bear case on NVIDIA, but how others are going to ascend. And so my point is the entire industry wants an alternative to NVIDIA, but unfortunately, I don't think they're going to get it.
That's great. I mean, it's good. I mean, we hear a lot of chirping for sure, but at the end of the day, I hear the same thing, and everyone says the same thing. They're the best by miles. So for what people want this AI infrastructure to do, which is pump out more tokens, scale up, serve up the software. The software is eating the tokens. It makes it smarter, makes it better. The productivity numbers are obvious. We just laid that out. Clearly, it's inevitable. And to the mainstream, again, there's a disconnect between the capital markets and the technology world. That's got to come together. So it's going to happen. Now, the question on this next segment is who pays the bill, Dave? Who pays the AI bill? You kind of took a supplier angle, vendor angle of here's what SaaS has got to do to serve the customers. I took the customer side, like, hey, I just want the best software that lowers my cost, increases my productivity, and drives profit, do more with less. You're seeing all kinds of business models. Is they're still fluid, still
I have an
uncertain.
answer.
There's opportunity, and Anthropic has got some, OpenAI's got some, you got agents. Who pays for the AI? Where's the money?
AI pays the AI bill. Here's why. Today, at the macro, IT spending, tech spending is about 4% of company revenues. So a company of $1 billion will spend 4% on tech. That number is going to increase dramatically. It's going to go, the Cube research modeling that we've done, David Floyer's done, George Gilbert, it's going to go north of 10% over the next decade. Why? Because AI is going to pay the bill, to answer your question. It's going to drive productivity. It's going to become self-sustaining and self-funding. And that number is going to go through the roof. And we're going to shift from traditional technology and IT spend to tapping tokens through APIs. That's where the functions are going to come through. And to our early discussion about the next great software company, that's going to have to be abstracted. And all that function is going to be available through APIs, and it's going to be generating tons of tokens. That's going to be generating tons of revenue and productivity that's going to pay for itself. AI pays for AI.
I think that's going to come from two places. I don't disagree with you. I think that defining what AI is an outcome, right? So there's two areas: usage, some sort of usage-based pricing model. I got the software; it's either as a service or some sort of embedded personal thing. But don't discount the fact that the eyeballs and the kind of quote eyeballs from the web days is still billions of people using OpenAI. Google's got billions of eyeballs and people using Google service. Anthropic's got the no hard line on ads. And they roast it in public, to your point. But look if OpenAI's got billions and billions of users, they're going to have ads, but it's not going to look like Google ads. And I remember when Google started, because I was involved in the paid keyword navigation movement. I remember people, even like Bill Gurley once said to me, no one will ever pay for a link on the web. The web was free at the time. Now paid links became the standard. So it was misunderstood. Okay. He actually said that to me, actually, when he was an analyst at Deutsche Bank. At OpenAI's ads won't look like links. They'll look like answers. Okay. They're going to look different. They're going to look more embedded to the context. And remember, Google won the ad game because of paid links, but it was the contextual relevance of typing in a search word and then seeing ads that were related to it. OpenAI is going to win there huge. And I think, if they're the AI, one of the AI engines, to your point, they will get paid. They will end up offering it for free, like Google did. Google always offered stuff for free. You had the toolbar generation, then you had Chrome. Google made so much money. So I think OpenAI will be a threat to Google, even though Google's got Gemini. Anthropic, maybe they go into we're the thinking class, maybe some sort of application, but I think ads are going to be there, and then some value to end users in either an enterprise or some other agent thing. Who knows? But to me, those are the two business models. They're still fluid, but massive opportunity. And I think the ad side is kind of an easy one to see. On agents everywhere. I mean, look at what we just talked about. Productivity is up. The infrastructure collapse, with all this Capex. Agents won't replace software. They're rewiring it, Dave. What's your take on that piece of it?
Well, so I want to first comment on sort of the advertising. You saw in Google's earnings, Sundar said people are engaging in longer and more complex sessions. He said queries in AI mode are 3x longer than traditional searches. We're also seeing sessions become more conversational with a significant portion of queries in AI mode now leading to a follow-up question. Third, people are searching in new ways beyond text. Nearly 1 in 6 AI mode queries are now non-text using voice or images. I bet a third of mine are voice or images, maybe more. Here's the point. Here's what he didn't tell you, that search queries are pennies, to execute. AI queries are 100x more expensive. And so OpenAI.
And by the way, when Google doesn't have more page views with more links, they lose billions of dollars. So the fact that they cost more to produce the results and it takes away from more loading pages, the users who are conversationally building rapport with the answer, they're not clicking on anything. There's no monetization. So Google's just holding the line, in my opinion. So until they inject paid answers.
What has to happen is the advertising model is going to shift from a blue link, to your point,
an answer
and a much richer experience. And that's going to require that the LLM vendor really understands the product and can represent it in a way that is beneficial to the consumer. And so there's a whole new trust paradigm that's going to emerge between the LLM vendor or the search vendor and the consumer that is a transition for Google. OpenAI is inventing it, so they have to come along. But now, again, I look at OpenAI like Bezos, as Altman like Bezos. They didn't have to make money for the first N number of years. They just took out more debt and just raised money, lost money. It didn't matter to them, whereas they were competing with these public companies, which had to make money. Now, of course, Amazon was a public company, and Bezos did a good job in his annual letter, explaining the future, and eventually he turned out to be right. I think that's a real advantage for OpenAI. Anthropic, different animal. They're doing some really.
If you look at people who have been in the industry long enough to know, like the internet wave, the web wave, Google was the best organic search engine before they did any ads. I know because I worked with them on their first AdWords project. Okay, and they hated ads. They hated ads. So Google and OpenAI have to get the organic experience right. OpenAI definitely has it. Google has it with Gemini, but they still have the legacy of search. Both are doing it right. So the question is that it's not so much ads will be the answer. The answers have to be organically relevant first, contextually relevant. Then you might see sidebar or other offers in things. Like if I go to OpenAI, and I did this actually, OpenAI, I did it a couple weeks ago, like, what's the best vocal skis to buy? And I gave him my demographics, my age, used to be an expert skier.
You got vocals? I got vocals.
I just bought a brand new pair. And I'm like, well, I used to be steep and deep, shredding KT22, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, I don't do that anymore. Oh, you're a blue square skier. So they're like, okay, you might want. And so OpenAI actually gave me a good answer. Now it came from the vocal website.
How are you a blue square skier? I've skied with you. You're not a blue square skier. What are you talking about?
Well, that's why I stay now because I'm out of shape. But I do a couple blacks here and that's
we skied one time together. All we were doing is steep, deep black moguls.
Dave, that was 10 years ago, bro.
We can still do that.
Yeah. Anyway, but my point is that I don't have to get the hardcore boards. I can get the all mountain board. So it was really helpful. Now, they didn't have any third-party validation. So that's huge upside for them. I think that's what Google AdWords did, AdSense on the side, and then that became the revenue machine. So I think OpenAI is a huge shot at ads. And I think brands, like when they would buy keywords, will insert to OpenAI answers and they will pay for it.
So
okay, I am convinced that's going to happen.
And I think
if they don't fuck it up.
And I think that to use your phrase, that their advertising and their consumer businesses is a feature, not a bug. I think the volume that they're going to get out of that and the data that they're going to extract from that, and again, the volume and cost go hand in hand, is going to be beneficial for them in the enterprise. And I have predicted, right now, it doesn't look like a good prediction, but I'm going to stick by it, that OpenAI will surpass Anthropic in the enterprise by the end of 2026.
So I have to ask you a question on this next segment. I want to go to agents because agents are hot. Claudebot happened, now called Moltbook. Actually, one of Paul Martino's portfolio companies actually did that hack. Ben Parr and the other guy, the engineer, they're the ones who actually created that whole phenomenon. But it really kind of highlighted this deep seek moment for agents, the Claudebot. agents don't replace software; they rewire. That's my thesis, Dave. What's your opinion on this? You're seeing a lot of companies come out trying to pump up agents that can do work cheaper. They're doing
Well,
work that was impossible before. What's your take on this?
my take is agents use tools, and software is they're tools. So the agents are going to be using software, just like people use software. I think, and the best software is going to be AI infused, and it's going to be secure, because I'm scared to death that you're going to have these, multi-agent hack is coming. And I think it's coming this year, as I think these agents are exposed. So the best software companies are going to be secure. They're going to be governed. They're going to be AI infused. They're going to be, really sophisticated. Yeah. They're going to have strong relationships with LLM vendors, because that's the mainspring of innovation here. So I would agree with your thesis.
My frame on this is, the way I'm thinking about agents is, and I'd love to get your reaction is, and everyone's talking about job loss. I hate that. And the whole failure of projects, complete false positive. Agents aren't about doing the same work cheaper. They're about doing the work that was impossible before. And what that means is that the stuff you couldn't get to, and we've seen this on the AI side with the large scale systems. That's why NVIDIA is crushing it, because they've unlocked a lot of things. So when you couldn't do something before that was impossible, or you were indifferent, it took too much time, there was friction, whatever the case, agents are now doing that. So it's not about doing things cheaper. You just do more things you couldn't do. And so if you're smart and have domain expertise, the human in the loop, so to speak, the human, this is an opportunity. So I think the jobs will shift. Yeah, certainly it's cheaper with agents, or I eliminate a position because I'm doing things before, but I'm doing new things. This is something that is not talked about and not factored into the fear mongering around AI. What's your reaction to that?
I would say that there is some truth to the premise, in that I do think you're going to start to see in 2026 white collar jobs affected. Jensen uses the line, it's not going to be AI that replaces your job. It's going to be people who use AI that replace your job. I agree with that. But people who use AI are going to need less people. And so I do think you're going to start to see a hit on white collar jobs. That said, I think you're going to see a big boom in blue collar jobs, people building out data centers, and artisan plumbers, and HVAC engineers and the like. And so I think the trade jobs are going to pick up and offset the unemployment concerns. I do think, it's natural that entry-level jobs, they always get hit when unemployment rises. But I do think AI is going to replace jobs, John. I do. I agree with Dario Modi.
Yeah, I do too. Not a lot, but it'll shift them and create some productivity. So back to NVIDIA, because I want to get this in here. The react to this. This GPU shortage is the new oil crisis. I was watching a miracle movie that was on Netflix. It was documentary about the 1980 Olympics.
That was great, wasn't it?
And they showed footage from the 70s where those gas lines, and you had to have your license plate was even. There's a long line.
I remember.
And I said to myself, yeah, that's like the people trying to get GB200s, B200s. NVIDIA's and the GPU shortage is huge. This is what we just talked about. Look at the funding from the Cerebras, Postron, funding surges, alternatives. NVIDIA's and chassis complaining about prices not getting lower. Is this a real diversification, or is NVIDIA's gravity creating these moons of value? What was your take on this, Dave? This is interesting.
It is interesting. I would say there are similarities and there are differences. The big difference is, as a consumer, most consumers, if you look at, the surveys, don't really think AI is life-changing. And probably for most people it isn't. And it will be. They're just going to wake up one day and go, oh my God, what would I do with AI? Like, what would you do without GPS? That's how I think it's going to happen. Whereas the difference is I remember, having to wait in line for my father to get gas. And he said, take the car down there and, wait in line.
Yeah. You a task rabbit, really a task rabbit.
And you were like psyched because you're a kid and you're like 16 years old. So I'll drive anywhere. Can I go to the dump? But so that it hasn't affected, the world the way it is now. Where it's true is that you don't think about, energy. You just turn on the lights, it's on. Oil is plentiful. And that's the way I think AI is going to be. We're going to become to rely on it. But if all of a sudden it's like the conversation we had with Dave Hitz, remember? Cold, cool water. When it, your comment, when the plumbing goes, everybody notices. Otherwise, you take it for granted. And I think that we take energy for granted, and we're going to take AI for granted at some point in time. But if we lose it, it's going to be problematic. So I think there are similarities and differences in the analogy. And by the way, was that an awesome documentary?
Oh yeah, it's phenomenal.
My college roommate lives in Minnesota. He worked on the trading desk at Piper Jaffray with Rob McClanahan and Brian Bellows. He said McClanahan had no personality, but he got all the props. And Bellows, you're a hockey guy, Bellows, Canadian. He was a life of the party. But anyway, that was a great documentary. It was very emotional and amazing. Yeah. Good preview for the Olies if you haven't watched it.
Yeah, I mean, the Olympics have changed. That was one of the best moments. Remember, that was such a great time. And young team, movie's great. We got a lot going on, Dave. We got earnings coming up. We got tons of funding happening next week. Some bellwethers, Cisco, Arista, and networking, Datadog and Cloudflare. And the whole usage pricing thing you mentioned. Applied Materials. What's going on with the supply chain? You got some security. What's going to happen with security? What do you think? Let's discuss what matters, not just what's going to come out of the reporting.
If I could make a couple of comments just on the recent earnings, I don't really follow Meta earnings that close. But Microsoft, I it was a stronger quarter than I think the market reaction showed. They, I think, are in a really good position to take advantage here, and their relationship with OpenAI has paid off, and I think it's going to continue to pay off. I would say, Google had a very impressive quarter. All cylinders, going, and their cloud business is really, really doing well. So Google Cloud overall grew 48%. What they don't report is Google Cloud Platform. My estimates, John, are Google Cloud Platform is growing over 50%. And I think they're going to sustain that for a while. And the reason is because of machine learning and AI and data and their chops there. If you go back to January 2024 and look at their cloud position in the surveys that we do with our friends at ETR, they were like, maybe 50% of AWS in terms of the survey respondents. Now they're much, much higher. They gained like 20 points on that, not in market share, but their market share is growing. They're closing the gap a little bit on Azure, but much more so on AWS. And I look at AWS this quarter, they're under a little pressure from their operating margins. AWS operating margins dropped, but that's not atypical. They're cyclical, but their cash flow got squeezed a little bit, and quite a bit actually. So I am a little bit concerned about that, and I do think that it's a hairy time right now for AWS. I think their advantage is they're so ubiquitous, it's so strong, and have such great, customer base, and they're so customer obsessed. But they're in an interesting position right now. To your earlier point, they may have to, think about acquisitions and doing things that, they don't normally do. Not that they don't make acquisitions, but they generally don't make big, bold acquisitions. At least on the AWS side. I mean, obviously Whole Foods was kind of interesting, and some of the other things they're doing, with Amazon retail. But AWS in tech is maybe going to have to make some chess moves, or they might get outgunned. And thus far, remember early days of AI, they were way behind under Silipsky. He got pushed out. So they're going to have to make some moves, and we're going to have to watch that very closely.
Well, I wouldn't count Andy Jassy out. He's a good chess player. He gets the business. He's super smart. He's got money. So they're actually throwing it around. I think on the M&A comment, I would just say that in general, in this market, to our earlier point at the top of the podcast, is that there is going to be massive winners and losers coming out quickly. And I think the reaction from the emotional side of the market this week around software getting pounded, it's a bloodbath. People just don't know what the hell they're talking about. Again, the disconnect between capital markets and technology is the gap is like the Grand Canyon, Dave. It's way across. Okay, and so I'm so glad I'm here, but. Because markets are emotional, platforms are structural, and the tech and convergence of capital markets is coming together, and we're reporting on it. So I could tell you that from what I'm hearing, The M&A activity is at an all-time high right now because some companies are thinking, if I go public and don't have an AI native story, they have to combine and reboot. So there's a lot of that going on, and frankly, dead wood, right? So I think the PE firms are highly active on both the growth side and the replatforming side, and then there's obviously the breakup and maximize profit. So I think there's going to be a lot of PE moves that won't look Neanderthal or violent. They'll look more like corporate development, banking deals, right, where they put people together, grab some of these young companies. So M&A is going to be hot. The IPO stuff,
or like the Grok deal that Nvidia did, and the deals that Microsoft's been doing, and to get around the government scrutiny.
Yeah, and it's going to continue. Well, great pod, good chat, a lot of action. I mean,
thank you, John.
I thought we were going to talk about the Patriots for most of the pod because that's what I wanted to talk about. But markets are emotional, platforms are structural. AI isn't killing software; it's just redistributing the power. And leadership, David, execution matter more than models. That's the key takeaway. This year will be about execution risk, right? Not strategy.
How are we feeling about Seattle, John?
Well, based on the poly market and also the quote traditional stock market, if it closed up 1,000 points today, that means the NFC is going to win. The rule, Wall Street, NFC always, whoever's up on the last day always wins.
That's old news. That doesn't hold anymore. I'm worried.
Both those signs point to Seattle on the NFC side, so that's that. But poly market.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's poly market saying?
Seattle.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So,
I mean, I hate to say it. I'm a Pats fan, obviously.
I think it's going to come down to this. I think the X factor will be, will Drake May have the nerve to be settled and deal with what the defense comes out? Because they have a great defensive line, Seattle. Okay, and they got great secondary. So the defense is very strong. So see how he handles that. Grable's got some things up his sleeve. The coaching will come down to it. This is going to be a coaching and special teams game, I think. So, and then whichever defense plays better.
Interesting
to me.
Listen to the Boston sports channels, the sports radio, and they're all very confident. Like it's going to be a close game, and we got the coaching advantage, and I think they're maybe overanalyzing it, but who knows? I mean, obviously we're rooting for them, but I've seen Seattle play quite a bit this year, and they're looking good.
I watched the NFL channel because it's in San Francisco. I'm not going to be there. Bummer, because normally it would have been a good kind of hangout for me. But
they're all at Moscone. Everybody's at Moscone right now.
I saw Christian McCaffrey, who got comeback player of the year. And what was interesting was he said, it was asked about Seattle, and he said they're good. I mean, was very candid. And McCaffrey's Mr. Football in my mind. So he was basically saying, they're stacked. He kind of broke it down perfectly. So
I think the only way the Pats win is if they can get to Sam Darnold and he has a meltdown. And Sam Darnold, he's either going to choke or he's going to be, the hero. But if they get to him, he's capable of, melting down. But so's Drake May. So,
well, first of all, the Super Bowl is interesting, but what pisses me off the most is that Rams quarterback got the MVP.
Oh, it's good. May. Good. That's a good sign. That's like being on the cover of Sports Illustrated. You don't want that.
And so maybe Drake May is going to be like, hey, I'll show who's MVP. By far, in my opinion, Drake May was like heads and tails more MVP than Stafford.
You think?
And oh yeah, on all
Why?
areas.
Because of his running yards?
Well, on the stat sheet, he basically only got beaten in a few categories, but the Rams had different situations in terms of how those situations happen in their games. Too, but Drake May took the Patriots from where they were last year, this year, and he did it with amazing talent. He did it in a great way. So I think Drake May, for that reason, makes him the most valuable player in the league because he had the stats. It was so close on the stats, and people were on both sides of that. You can almost do a toss-up on it, just on stats and just raw quarterback value.
But the MVP,
then the X factor goes in.
The MVP never goes to the most valuable player; it goes to the best player, right? So that's what I'm saying. But no question, Drake May was the most valuable
best player wins games. Best
right.
player wins games, Dave. So like he was the best player in his
but
position.
They could argue. They were arguing easy schedule. And,
Okay. So the question is: he the best player in his position? And I say yes. In
No,
court,
I would say, well, okay, no, let me make the case for him. Because if you combine his passing yards and his running yards, he smokes the MVP, in my opinion. That's true. But how do you feel about, a QB that's just, running around? I mean, it's like, is that really what makes the QB? Or do you value more the guy who can pocket pass? I don't
he
know.
barely won the award. He barely
heard
won the
one
award.
vote.
He had 5 votes.
5 votes.
He had 366 points, 24 first place votes. May was right with 361 and 23 first place votes. One
Well,
first place
good.
vote away, but
That's
points,
good.
points,
We
5
don't want
points,
that.
and 1 first place vote.
We want the
So-
trophy. We want the Lombardi. We don't care about the MVP. How about
All right.
Brady? How about Brady? Did you hear what he said? They asked
No.
him, who you rooting for? He goes, I don't have a dog in this fight. Can you imagine? 20 years
He's
in New England?
He's
What
a commentator. He has to say that.
Come
Yeah.
on. Come
The-
on.
That's like saying, come on. That's like him saying, of course everyone knows he's got a dog in the fight. Of course, everyone knows. That's him
How
saying,
can
I have
you
a
not
dog
be
in the
rooting
fight.
for the Patriots if you're
That's
Tom
when
Brady?
Tiger Woods said, when Tiger Woods said, do you play golf for the money? No, it's not about the money.
Okay.
Well, Dave,
Good stuff, John.
let's hope we come back with a win. See you
Yeah.
next week on
All
the
right.
CUBE Pod, episode 123 next week.
Bye, everybody.